Captain's Log Supplemental.
So, Miss Vicki.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember when we were watching those WRL events and some of those grid life events where you used to see the in-car video and it had like the cameras seeing front and back, but it also could see all the telemetry and everything that was going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of the ones that we liked were taken by the Sentinel system. Remember James came on our podcast earlier?
Right.
You know, we have no excuse since he lent us one for trial and demonstration purposes. We should actually probably put that in one of our cars. Maybe
I
two.
really think we should.
I think we should.
I know.
Because then we'd look like the immature endurance racing team that we are. Oh, wait, I mispronounced that, didn't I? Sorry, my bad. We could
So what does the Sentinel system do?
We could have 3 cameras with picture-in-picture. We could have, if we ever get the AIM system to work, open invitation to anybody from AIM to come on and give us a little bit of love. We need some help. And then we could have all our telemetry on there. And then we can have it streamed live into the paddock or around the world to our millions of fans. We're apparently very popular in Kenya right now. Don't know why, but that's fine. And it can integrate all the available race statistics from like Race Hero and everything, so we could actually see how we're doing on video. We wouldn't even have to carry around our phone anymore. Live.
I love it.
From the great halls of their house, there are assembled 3 who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicki Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Ben Dawson. I needs me some Ben Dawson.
Yes, you do. It's been too long since we've sat down and do that episode.
It's been a few
Glad
days.
to be back.
It's been a few days. And you know who's not going to miss her shot at seeing some Ben Dawson?
That's right.
I love me some Ben Dawson.
That's right.
I really do. I have missed you, but I know it's summertime as we're recording this and the kids are out and the family fun begins, plus combining that with the working and stuff. I know you're a busy man.
Okay.
That's right. A lot going on, but I'm happy to be here for sure.
All right. So since Ben's back, and apparently my intros and poor grammar on my intros has rubbed off on my beautiful bride, we have one thing that makes Ben smile. A listener question.
Oh my gosh. Nothing makes me more excited than questions or feedback from people who listen to the show. That's why we're doing this, right?
You know, we don't know why we're doing this, Ben. We just keep doing it.
That's why I'm doing it.
So this one's not about driving, though, Ben. This one's about something else.
Okay. Well, I do other things.
You do, I know, but we don't want to talk about those unless we're on the OnlyFans. So,
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Speaking of the OnlyFans, did you see the email address for Ben Dawson's Hobbit feet was generated?
Oh wow!
Great. Fantastic. They're hairy.
Yeah, Ben Dawson is a Hobbit or something. I don't remember at gmail.com, but whatever. I got an email from that. I was loving life. That was fantastic. Anyway, the listener was concerned about they've been racing a little bit, and they wanted to
Yeah.
know about multi-car teams and what to do, some of the options, things not to do, things to avoid. And I figured Vicki and I can definitely tell you things to not to do, and
Yeah.
maybe a couple things about what to do. So since your name is on the title, Ben, you get to go first.
Well, I would like to know if we can get some context at all about the question. I think it could probably help better, because for me, the times we've done that with our own stuff would be like back in the day when we had my Miata. It was kind of like a half-assed spec Miata that we did some endurance racing with, and we had our E30 that we had built up. So one car was owned completely by me, the other one was nominally owned by me, but we'd all been putting tons of money into it. So I just kind of considered it a car we all owned together, but we were going to be taking it to the track together and campaigning together as our as all of our one team. And we definitely did this more than one time. And there's ups and downs with doing it. But I would say the biggest kind of context thing I would like to hear first off is what the motivations are for this listener. Do we have any idea what their motivation for doing this? You know, if it's different, if it's a business reason, or, you know, there could be 20 reasons to want to do more than one car.
I think this one was aimed at more fun, more experience,
right?
Bigger team, more people, things like that.
Yeah, so that sounds like it aligns more with the reasons we did it for the Winsome Racing back in the day. We still race, but most often it's just it's one car that somebody brings. So that's kind of where we are now. We're not still trying to do multiple car things, but I'll tell you, for me, it happened at a time where I either only had one kid, or before I had kids at all. We were into doing this a lot more. I had a lot more time in my life to be the guy who was prepping one of the two cars or something like that. You know, to me, it was nothing getting everything ready for a race when I didn't have kids. Like, to me, it feels like a task that would put me under the ground for 6 feet under right now if I just had to turn around with all the stuff I'm doing now and get a race car ready. So a lot of how able you are to do multiple cars depends a lot on your life conditions, but it also depends on your motivation. If you're some dude who got great at racing spec Miatas and great at building and repairing your spec Miata, and you're like, man, I'm doing this as good as anybody in the pack. I bet I can make money doing this. I'm tired of my job. I'm gonna make a shot building spec Miatas and selling them for money and taking them to the track and campaigning it for people and being like a dinosaur. You know what I mean? You can quickly expand your racing operation. If you're good at it and you've got a good head for money, that's kind of one reason to head that way. But it doesn't sound like that's what we're talking about. In our case, I love racing, and I love a lot of the people who have come across, you know, coast to coast doing racing. And they've made a lot of strong connections with people. And I thought, man, it'll be so fun to have them come run with us at VIR. It'd be so awesome to get people I love more involved and get to come check our shit out and how we do it. Because not like we were doing anything special racing wise. We just thought, how cool would it be to get to have Blake Field come race our car with us? You know what I mean? Or, you know, have Ray and Jamie come out from Washington over here and race cars with us from Lemons and a Lucky Dog over there. So, you know, there's a lot of thoughts in the back of our head, you know, with this, like, hey, let's get more local folks that we know and love and do, you know, kind of expand the operation to get some of them more of them roped in. So that was always about love of the sport and love of bringing people who we love in. And I say love a lot because that's what I mean. And for us, it was, we didn't want to lose out money wise. We always wanted to be fair about splitting the cost. That we were never trying to come out with extra in our pocket. We just wanted to make sure nobody was losing out too bad. You know what I mean? So we weren't trying to win on money, but we weren't trying to lose. We wanted to make sure we were taking care of ourselves. But then again, you can do that to such a level where you're like, oh, well, you know, I had this many billable labor hours getting the Miata ready. So I was never like, I did this much work, so I should get, when it came down to money and labor and all that sort of stuff, it was just kind of all one big wash, and dollars came down to dollars.
Right.
But you can get super technical with every aspect of it and the costing and all that sort of stuff if you want. Wasn't our deal. We just wanted to be at the track at the right day with two cars working.
Right.
And we figured it out. So we took a pretty rough approach. So that's one big thing about it. I think you need to understand what your motivations are. Why am I trying to do this? Is it worth it? Just ask questions like that to get going. We never really did that. We just sort of jumped in because we were like, you know, we're younger, had more time, you know, so it was not that big a thing. But if you're already pretty well burdened and you're pretty impacted on your schedule, you might want to think hard about why you'd want to add another team if you're already running one.
Yep.
Yeah, they are not easy to run multi-teams. And of course, even when you do run multi-car, multi-teams, multi-car, you have to delegate. You've got to delegate. And and we've said that before, and we've learned from another team that's what destroys a team. Is when
somebody end up feeling like they're overburdened, whether they genuinely are or not. You know, perception versus reality is always a thing to consider too. But no matter how somebody gets to that point, you lose a teammate and a buddy if they get to the point where they're aggrieved or feeling like they're the only one doing the work. Like I felt
Right.
in business school, it was always like a group project. It'd be like me and 3 frat bros. I would just do all the work because I needed the A. Like I needed, I didn't have a
Right.
job waiting. I didn't have a job waiting for me at my dad's place. And when I got out of school, I needed to get an actual job. So, I mean, I felt like that all the time in business school, but it was true. But either way, I sure didn't like any of the people I was involved with on those projects. I was like, screw these guys. I resented them. So, yeah, that's a great point that you make. A great point about the interpersonal stuff and the fact that, yeah, you're gonna have to delegate. You're gonna have to say, hey, it might come down to a thing where I got the car mostly ready, but hey, when we get to the track, you're so good at grabbing food and doing that, that's going to be your focus. At one point, when I was pretty slack on the labor, just due to having little kids and not having a lot of time, I was sort of backing away from my team, saying like, hey, it's not fair for me to be part of this team when you guys are doing so much of the work and I'm not. And they were super nice about, yeah, but you do a lot of help with coaching up drivers at the track and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I do help a little bit with that, but that's nothing compared to the hours you guys are throwing in with like transport and getting everything ready. So teams can be pretty push and pull about that sort of stuff. But in general, my team has always been very nice to me about this division of labor. But it's important to consider, and you're right. It's important to pull the trigger on delegating and say, hey, need you to do this, need you to do that. And it's important to be direct, but not mean. You don't want to come off like an evil taskmaster, and nobody's going to come do your stuff with you either. So there's a lot of leadership challenges that come up with trying to run a multiple car team that may be less existent with one team effort or one car effort.
So there was this team I know, and they started off and they didn't know bupkis about
friends of yours.
Friends. They I've seen them once or twice.
You shower with them?
I don't like to brag.
All right. So, what'd you learn from these friends?
In the shower? Well, that's the OnlyFans podcast.
Back to the track. Where do we learn at the track from these people?
Speaking of showers, we're going to Thompson this weekend, and the showers at Thompson suck. Anyway,
they really need to address those at some point.
Yes, they do. But anyway, so they went and they got their car prepped because they didn't know anything about doing anything, and they got their car prepped and they went to the first race and they listened to this podcast, Everyone Racers, and they got good tips, and even the 3-pedal mafia decided to be an ambassador for them for their first race and kind of shepherd them a little bit, and everything went really well. And
the old deceptively easy first effort.
The first one went piece of cake. So hey,
that's like the first race my Miata ever did. We won the first WRL race overall with that car. I was like, well, here we go.
We're going pro. So, what comes next after that? Well, if one car's easy, why don't we do 2? I don't know why people keep complaining about how hard this stuff is. It was pretty easy. Right. You prep the car, you drive the car there, you drive it around, and you bring it home. It's fine. After breaking our first car at our second race, terminally, it's still breaking.
Ouch.
It's been sitting in the garage for 6 years. We ran 2 cars for at least 2 seasons. And I think sometime this team ran 2 cars for the first 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons. And they were shot. They were cranky. They were overdone. If there was things that could be done wrong, they probably did them. And
it sounds familiar. I feel like I know these people almost.
And
that's
they were
such a common
burnt out.
Like
physically, mentally, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And things didn't go well at this one race where we got rid of another car. And has nothing to do with why the car died, but that team's car was, I think that was the 3rd car they wrote off at that point. And it was no longer fun. Yeah. So my thing is,
I don't know these people, but I know the situation. And
it's happened to many, I'm sure. Maybe not at the exact same number of races and exact same racetrack, but whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
You got to be careful if you choose to do this, because prepping one car is like 1x quantity of hard, and prepping 2 cars is like 4x quantity of car. And it does not go up linearly. It gets worse as time goes by. So
Especially when you have two cars at the track that start to fail
at the same time,
or start to have issues.
Yeah.
And then especially if you do not have enough mechanics on hand that can manage two cars that are starting to have issues.
well,
Right,
I mean,
right. Because then you're usually have two teams off the track, and one might be able to be kind of
Maybe.
resurrected or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. Yes, I said might be. But yes, I definitely know what you're talking about there. It's tough.
The thing that I wanted to caution before we get into like how to do it or options of how to do it
Before we say
is-
anything positive about doing this, no, I'm
is-
with you. I got you.
stop or beware when it stops being fun.
Yes, it's so hard to notice that moment. It took me way too long when I was
Way too
doing
long.
go-karts. I was doing go-karts, and by the time it was ready for me to cut and run, it took me to too many bad places. Too many Wednesday nights in the garage at 3 a.m. working on a go-kart.
Yeah.
Wow, working on a go-kart? Like, what is wrong with me? Like, you guys, it's tough. It's really hard to be self-aware and self-actualized.
I can't
enough
imagine. I can just have
point
this
out.
picture in my head about you just having this dull look in your eyes going, what the hell am I doing?
It was about one of those kind of moments, but I needed it to happen. I'm glad it did, because at least for me, that was a good reflection point of, I was in the first couple of years of my motorsports career, which by this point, have I been doing this almost 25 years? I have. So, I got a good reality check very early on about perspective and how this needs to be ranked in my life as far as things I need to be doing. So yeah, it's hard to know that point. It's hard to recognize a tipping point, but you're right, Bill. Good luck to everybody out there about noticing it and catching it before it's a problem.
You're better
Right.
man than that guy. So let's see. It really comes down to the prepping of the car and I think the standard of the prep, because what's prepped to person A may not be anything like what person B does, or vice
Certainly not.
versa.
We've
Right.
run into that also
A little bit.
Yes, yeah,
through our team.
It's so funny. I remember I went to my first ever SCCA race to just crew with the guy who had been helping me with my Miata. He owned a shop and he had been working on my Miata. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go do this Central or whatever. I was doing a race at the Charlotte Roval. I forgot I even had ever been there before. Now that I started talking about this, but yeah, so I rode over there from Chapel Hill to Charlotte with this guy, and he was doing his event. And even then, this was like, I might have been kart racing, but I don't think I even had I guess I had done some autocross, but I was just observing at this SCCA race where there's spec Miatas, there's GT1 cars, all different kinds of things. And I noticed then, I said to the guys, man, there's a staggering difference in the level of prep, even within one class. Like the class this guy was racing, I was like, look at this one guy's out there, beating the pants off everybody. He's obviously got his car way over prepped and just, stomping everybody on motor. And then you've got your car, which is obviously got less motor, but it's handling better than everybody else. And he just, he said, yeah, it just depends on time and money. And that was kind of one of the first time I realized that even within an event, within a class, there can be a huge variance in the prep levels.
Yeah. And personality too. I mean,
Yes, of course.
I'm an obsessive planner, and some of our team, not so much. So it just, you gotta think about that and make sure you match or acknowledge that you don't, and then either manage the friction or expect the friction, or decide whether the friction is worth dealing with.
If the juice is not worth the squeeze, right?
Exactly.
That's there's so many leadership stuff we can get mired in the leadership of this forever. But yeah, it's another good leadership principle to be thinking about in this effort would be trying to play to everybody's strengths who are involved.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the difficulties I have with that is thinking that I am the only person with any strength or knowledge, and everybody else is dumb. So it's also important
you are
to
a
kind of
Latin
push back
major,
and
so.
yeah, you have to kind of be able to push back and let go, and then say, I bet this person would be great at doing this thing. It might even be a thing I would used to do. It's again, the first time I was a production supervisor in manufacturing, and I got moved to a better, newer shift. I was like, well, second shift ain't gonna be shit without me. And then of course they were just like, did fine.
They learned everything they needed from you, Ben.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you for saying that. But yeah, so it's that's part of it too. Is just making sure you play to everybody's strengths. But if I were talking practical terms about doing this, is it time can we pivot to some practical stuff?
I was going to say with time to make some suggestions and then figure out what we missed when everybody writes into GarageHeroesInTraining@gmail.com.
If I'm going to do this, Bill, am I going to do it where I've got one car on metric stuff and one car on standard stuff? Would that be smart?
That's what we did. I mean,
Oh.
that's what they did.
I would never do that.
Oh.
Even down to the fact that if I was racing a car that was mostly 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 14 millimeter, 17 millimeter, I would try to race a car that also had very similar fastener sizes. Because even if you go from like that, all the Mazda that has all those, you go race a BMW, it's all 11s, 13s, and 15s, and then you finally meet up at 17. You know what I mean? But like, if you really want to be smart about this, I think if you wanted to have the super easiest, smoothest path to getting the most buddies out to the track, and you can, and none of you are over 6'3", just get a gang of Miatas, get you 2 Miatas, and get a third one for parts, all the same stripe. All either 91 to 93 or 89 to 93 or all 94 to 97, or what I mean. Everybody just get E36s. Just everybody get 2 E36s. But I mean, I would try to race 2 of the same thing. Some of the teams that look like they're having the most fun to me at an AER event sometimes are teams that just show up with 2 pretty badass E36s that look like they're relatively not that much trouble because they're racing them all the time. They know what they're doing. So that's the direction I'd be thinking in. If I was trying to go path of least resistance, cars that share all the exact same parts, and you can be, if one's bad off the track, it's likely that you can probably have the other one cobbled back together to be good enough. If I was trying to be the smartest dude ever doing this, I would race 2 of the same thing.
Or you could go with let's pick some random cars, like a 1974 Ford Capri from.
Sure, why not? Because there's the aftermarket is insane for those. So you can get this stuff anywhere.
Exactly. And then, you got your 74 Capri, which is European, and then you go. What complements that on the track? A 1984 1-year only Mustang GT Turbo, not SVO, GT Turbo. That,
oh my God,
that is what you do. I
don't think I was even aware of that car. Wait, so was the Capri metric as far as faster? It's so fucking weird.
At one point, we just referred to the Mustang as the car of bitterness and regret.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a totally bitterness and regret vehicle, like a deliverance vehicle of bitterness and regret. Like bring it right to your garage and dump it all over the floor.
Yep, this is not the path I would recommend at this point for a team that is relatively new. This Ben's path has wisdom. That path had pain, lots of pain.
And the thing is too is, as sometimes when we bring some of the newer teams on, and they tell us about their cars, and then sometimes they're Franken cars. So, and we're just like, you were making things so complicated, and respectfully, you're making things so hard and inventive that it's almost impossible to fix in a flash with easy to find parts because you've combined so many other things to it that don't really match.
But then again, there are plenty of teams out there who are smart enough and capable enough to pull that off. That's not me. I'm too dumb.
You have to be pretty talented.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't have the kind of talent. So I totally get why some people do that, and it's their jam. It is not mine.
It is not. It is not the easy button, though.
But you play to your strengths. I mean, for some people, the easy button for them is all the engineering and prep. Like, that's nothing. But then when they get to the track,
look what I did.
They can't drive it, but they can build it.
I would disagree slightly. I would say that's not their easy button. That's their fun button.
Yeah, you're right. Right, you're right. Yeah, but also it seems easy to when I watch them doing it. They're excited for them. It's excited about it. It looks easy. What they're doing looks like they make it look easy.
Yeah, well, it is. Just try it, people. It is not that much fun. Okay, so you've got 2 cars. I would recommend that you split the team into 2 cars that are under one team, but not built, prepped, maintained, all of it by one person, because that one person will either die or blow up. It's just too much volume and too much quantity of work. And I think you have to split up. And whether that means you run a one parent team with multiple team cars that are built and managed by different individuals or different families or different sets of people. Because one person, or even 2 people, let's say, hosting this podcast, besides Ben, two people prepping two cars doesn't work out so well because there's a lot. Like I said, it's a lot of work. And then the ownership thing, the way that we've done it with our team is each car is mostly independently managed, prepped, and prepared and brought to the track. And we are a team at the track and we are a team away from the track. But, if we have a problem, we call some of our friends on the team and say, can you come over or can you work with us this weekend or we're totally screwed. Can you talk to us in FaceTime? FaceTime's a wonderful thing. I think between FaceTime and Amazon, I don't know how people how people prepped cars back then, but we need both of those. And then you got to think about the distance that you guys are willing to travel. What's your travel commute distance? Like when we go to Road Atlanta, that is a big haul for us. Not so big for Ben. And one thing that we're thinking about doing, GarageHeroesInTraining@gmail.com, is we need to find some common teams like on the West Coast or the Southwest and do seat swaps as opposed to multi-car teams, because we have room on most races. We have room within our team in our cars. People could come up and say, hey, and then we could go down there. And all it really takes is flying with your helmet and some fireproof clothing and, getting to the track in a rental car. And, as long as you cooperate in terms of seriousness of how racer you are, preparation and expectation, I think that would work out really well. Just an option. So I'm not sure whether running as independent cars within the same team counts as a multi-car team, but that's how many / most of them are.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way we always sort of executed it. Nobody had room to have two race cars at their house. Yeah, and luckily enough, all of us were kind of, I guess nobody was too hard up on money that we had to like have everything exactly split perfectly, or like there's no legalese involved with our stuff. We did all of our costs on Splitwise. You ever heard of that?
No.
So Splitwise is an app for splitting up costs where you're like, hey, Ben put in $89 for the brakes, so just make sure everybody kind of is putting in the same thing. So you just put in your expenses and it whacks it out into however many people are involved or committed financially. So I would recommend using Splitwise or something like that if you're trying to kind of keep the costs all equal. Luckily, we were hippie-ish enough. We're like, hey, let's just keep it all equal. And then by the time we were like, hey, that E30 is too big. Like I sold my Miata to try to start building a Spec E46, which I still have not finished. But when it's time for me to sell a Miata that I had owned, you can keep looking around that corner. I had owned that Miata forever, and then we raced it for a while, but it was always my car. So when it was time to sell it, I just sold it. Yeah. Nobody had anything into it. When it was time to put a new diff in it or put the latest exhaust on it, it was something I would always do just because it would make the car better and eventually have it be better value out the door. So I never would charge that kind of stuff back to the team. If it made it faster, that was a side benefit. But when it came time to sell the E30 that we had, was the last Winsome race car that was an all team car. We just we sold it before it hit metal fatigue from getting hit too many times. But in that case, I think there were four of us who were kind of the team principals, and we just sold it for whatever money and then whacked that up into 4 chunks. Yeah, it was somebody had to take this out or that out or whatever. We kind of had to do a little bit of final reckoning, but it was all kind of the same out the door. But however you do the ownership, that's up to you. If you want to go do a multiple car team, of course, other things to think about depending on how serious you are about this. We never did this. We never did anything like have anybody sign an agreement about how much they were going to pay or how much liability they were going to assume or how much liability we had. We just skipped that shit and hope for the best. Nothing bad ever happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You could skip that stuff and have something bad happen also. Right.
Yes, for sure.
So think about that. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not a lawyer. Don't know anything about that. We wanted to have a hippie love speed fest every time. We wanted to have more than one car at the track, and that's what we were up to. No lawyers involved. Maybe it's not a good idea to always have no lawyers involved. Up to you. But there's a whole ton of legal stuff you could begin to fully consider, depending on who you are and who you know. So think about that too. That's another part of it. Because I mean, you might be not litigious at all, but you might have a driver come through who is, and then suddenly makes it fun for nobody. You know what I mean? It could end up being bad and no fun.
It's supposed to be fun, people. The other thing you've got to balance is there's going to be a difference in personal situations and personal skills. Like you may have somebody who has very deep pockets but no mechanical skill, and you may have somebody who has tons of mechanical skill and perhaps not as deep of a pocket. And there's different ways of doing it. Like some teams have team members who rent their seat, basically. You know, each race costs them X dollars. Depends on the team, depends on the level. And other people do the sweat equity thing. You know, hey, I'm going to, you know, we got to change the engine and swap the transmission. Okay. And then, you know, you have to kind of work together to get something. And in our case, just be close. Like I don't sit there and say, well, you're 68 cents short this race, and I need it.
Yeah.
You know, just fair. And, you know, where both sides don't feel taken advantage of. And that's sometimes the biggest problem, is the taken advantage of feeling, whether it's accurate or not. It doesn't really matter. It just ends up making...
If you get there, you're there. Like, it doesn't matter. There's no use backtracking or trying to relitigate it within the team. If it's there, and you got to do it.
Yeah. And it doesn't diminish.
No. Did you guys ever see that book, The Hurt? Like it was a kid's book?
Yeah.
But you know, the one where you're kind of nursing a hurt, and then by the time it gets bigger and bigger, nothing fits in the room except you and the hurt. Like,
oh yeah,
it's a pretty true book.
It's a steady climb. It may have flat plateaus, but it doesn't ever dip. So
plateaus will fool you too. You got to watch out for those.
I don't think they're actually quite flat. I think they're kind of just a slower taper upwards. But anyway,
you're right. Yeah, you're right. Though that's a great point to bring up. And it's not that this is terrible. It's, you know, we love going to the track with big bunches of people. Like we've had 30 plus people. I hate to only sound negative, because it is a ton of fun. We had all our buddies there, and we were running good, and everybody's, you know, blasting away. It is super fun. I mean, it's still the most fun you can have with your pants on. It's still the most fun you can have without ending up in federal prison. So take the good with the bad, but there are risks. There are ways you can end up feeling aggrieved or hosed up or in court. So just a lot to think about, but it is really awesome when it goes great.
I think you just broke Vicki, but that's okay. She'll come back. She's still giggling. I mean, we've had races with 30 plus teams. 30 plus people on our paddock. And, you know, we routinely say that Three Pedal Mafia is our sister team that just doesn't acknowledge it. That's fine.
Yeah, they just pretend like they're not, but that's cool.
That's fine. You know, this is a one-way relationship. It's fine.
Yeah.
Well, eventually they'll realize we haven't let go, but it's fine. We're not clingy at all. But
not at all.
Not at all. So it's fine. It's good.
I've never even met any of these people, I don't think. I gotta meet those guys.
You will.
Oh, that's true. That's right. Headed up there. Where are we going?
Pitt.
Awesome. I'll wear that place out too.
That's right. So I'm sure we missed like the most obvious part of this discussion.
Yeah. I'm sure you're right. But yes, this is one where it was deep and thorny, and obviously the people talking about it are three people who've been deeply hurt by the process in different ways. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'll come back to it. Even though we sound to me, we sound mostly negative about it. I'm happy to come back and talk about it if we get some feedback. If people want to dig deeper into it, I can go deeper.
Well, it's one of those things. It can potentially be great. It can potentially blow up in your face, but most of the time, these are either friends or should be friends, and you don't want to lose it over this.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this show and you decide you want to try to do this for money, stop listening to the show.
Go with choice B. So I don't really think that if you think about it in terms of like if this is going to be a business of yours, you might get depressed if you do the dollars per hour rate that you're earning for yourself.
So, most certainly will. And yeah, as cool as it sounds, think about how many restaurants close in their first year of operation, and then multiply that by 10 million as far as race shops. But good luck. Good luck out there. I could never consider doing this for money because I'm not smart enough.
We are not rooting against you. We're just saying, hey, some of the pain that we've felt. So whatever we forgot, GarageHeroesInTraining@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be fun.
Yep.
That's right. Thank you for bringing up this this great question. It was it was a tough one to get through. I'm glad we talked about it.
That's right. We got to talk about something racing now soon. Ben's
Oof,
going through
yeah.
withdrawals. All right. Next episode. Thanks, everybody.